Hello and welcome to the Chat Show, where we dispense computer help, advice, and tech news. I'm General Buckles, and I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Bradford Skeldorado of the YouTube channel Bradford Skeldorado. Brad, how are you this evening?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Hot. I am sweating. It is 106 degrees outside here in the Bay Area, and our AC here is I'm sitting next to my PC, which is its own heater, so it's battling with my. Very inefficient. How about the weather down there? And we're actually going to discuss the weather. Hold on a second. How's the weather down in Louisiana?
Louisiana's hot.
Yeah.
It's definitely humid. We've dealt with a lot of rain over the last few weeks, but we haven't had it in a couple weeks. But it's 100, 101 down here with very high humidity. So it's definitely miserable doing anything outside.
Swamp weather. All right. Well, on this week's show, we're going to talk about Intel so much that you're going to think the AI that we're also going to be discussing later is forcing us to not talk about AMD or NVIDIA, because it's an all Intel night here. So let's get started with the tech news. And our first story is obviously about Intel. Story number one. Intel claims its optical interconnect chiplet technology is like going from using horse-drawn carriages to using cars and trucks. That's their analogy. At a optical fiber communications conference, Intel gave a glimpse at this optical compute interconnect chiplet. And it's allowing communication between CPUs and GPUs and transferring data at speeds of upwards of 4 gigabits, I believe. No, 4 terabits. I'm sorry.
Terabit.
The reason I chose this article, it piqued my interest, was that just last week you and I had discussed AMD playing with these chiplets in the GPU and separating what we're used to as a single die. They're doing a lot more of this separating, and the communication between the chiplets was a question that I had, like, all right, how efficient is that communication? Intel seems to have the answer for that, this I/O interconnect versus an electrical I/O. Well, yeah, they refer to replacing electrical I/O with optical I/O is what's going from horse-drawn to high-speed automobiles. Is this what we're going to see? More of the breaking up of a central processing unit and have it be a bunch of little brains working together?
Yeah. So what this really is, whenever I read through this article, what this seems like to me is over the past, I would say 8 years, through AM4, through all the generations of Intel, it's always been kind of like, if you look at it like a hot rod, you're constantly improving the same vehicle. It seems like Intel is really stepping up and producing an entirely new vessel, like they mentioned, going from horse-drawn to cars. Really, they're upping the speeds. They're doing so much to include the capability of AI in the future that it seems like everybody's moving toward having a AI PC versus having AI capabilities. So it really seems like they're increasing the speeds, the abilities that they're going to be able to do with not only CPU, GPU, but integrated GPUs to make them a lot better and faster as well.
The part that jumped out to me after reading it was this discussion that you'd be able to install a GPU that doesn't require a PCIe slot. So that means that motherboard designs, as we know them, you have all the different form factors, your ATX through micro and all that could change drastically if you don't need PCIe slots, or at least for this. But this sounds like PCIe slots writ large could go away in general and change the shape and the nature of a motherboard, which could then change the shape and nature of PC cases and change the whole landscape of what your PC needs to look like or what the layout needs to be. You're kind of beholden to this rectangular box thing. Well, you take out this massive GPU and you can stash it anywhere you want. I think it's gonna be really interesting where the case designs can go. Like these people have those desks where you build it kind of flat inside the desk. You could take that to the extreme. Thermaltake has that new sort of weird boxy one, I think is really cool. But that still beholdens you to that motherboard design. The whole enthusiast market could just get upended with this in a good way.
Yeah, and not only that, but you're talking a 1,000 watt power supply that you no longer need for your actual computer. Let's say you were just doing homework, you were doing, you know, any type of spreadsheets, anything like that. You've got essentially a 200 watt smaller GPU in a small ITX case, kind of like these mini computers we've been discussing over the past couple weeks. And then let's say you want a game, then you have your standalone GPU that is hooked up through not even a PCIe riser, but it's its own connection to the motherboard itself. And now I'm ready to game. So, you know, theoretically, you could take your work from work to home and never have to lug around a big computer or anything. You plug it into your monitor, you do whatever you need to do, and then you're ready to play your gray zone. You hook it up to your GPU and you're ready to go. You know what I mean?
Pandering.
So it does seem like a really cool way, especially with that feature, which we have seen standalone GPUs in the past that work with laptops and things like that. But this is definitely something that they are moving with low latency and just really, really good performance with the new CPUs and everything that they've got coming out.
Yeah, 4 terabits. And it says in here, they're talking about how there's less power required to make those transfer speeds, because that was also something we'd read previously, that PCIe 6, or the big issue they were having with PCIe 6 was overheating. You had all this data moving and it was creating heat problems, and their solution was to basically push that problem onto the consumer and say, you guys figure out the cooling solution, we're just going to create more heat over here. So if Intel perfects this, consuming only 5 picojoules. Don't know what that means. Google it, because I'm going to. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. The expansion of the chiplet concept is going to be pervasive in the next few years. Now, this isn't consumer level ready, and it seems targeting for commercial use. And then they said it should be reaching the consumer space in the years ahead. So we won't see this for a while. But yeah. Story number 2. Leaked Intel Arrow Lake chipset diagram show more PCIe lanes, no support for DDR4. The new chipset boasts 2 M.2 SSD ports connected directly to the CPU. I think this is more of what every gamer wants. This seems ideal for gamers. We have kind of been pointing out in recent weeks that AM4 being supported with new CPUs, and you're getting this not, I wouldn't call it future proofing, but they're giving you more runway if you're an AM4 user and you don't necessarily want to do a whole new build. Intel is saying, nope, get on the train. We are going forward. No more DDR4. Yeah, get on this train. What are your thoughts about that?
We talked about previously the efficiency and the fail rate of 13th and 14th gen Intel. So right. I believe this is kind of the fix, not really the fix for those CPUs, but really let's drop all the DDR4. Let's, like I said, let's move to the future. Let's get everything behind us. If you want budget gaming, you can have the 12th gen, 13th gen. We're talking about high speed computers, and like we mentioned previously, the ramp to that the scale of performance and everything is really steep right now with new motherboards. And like I said, these are showing M.2 drives connected directly to the CPU itself. So you can only imagine how fast speeds, read and write speeds or anything like that are going to be with these new CPUs.
Yeah. So wait, was it the instability issue with Intel? Was that 12.13 or 13.14?
That was 13.14.
13.14. So they're basically saying they're accepting defeat. They're not going to try and solve that stability problem. They're going to be like, hey, let's move on to 1516. Let's keep looking. Don't look over here. Yeah. Oh, don't look at that. Look at this. Look at this over here. Okay.
New shiny. Yep.
Yeah. All right. That I haven't. I've done a lot of reading on chipsets. I need to understand the whole chipset standardization, because then you know when you're a first time PC builder, and you see this plethora of motherboards, and you see this weird nomenclature: X570, B550, Z690. You have no idea what any of that means, especially if you don't understand the distinction between Intel and AMD. It took a long time to understand it as a novice, and now I'm going to keep a close eye on this because I'm very interested in how chipsets get standardized, and then how each manufacturer, whether Asus or Gigabyte, what they do differently to maximize the new features, and so you can get the most out of it. So this is something I'm going to keep a close eye on, even though I'm an AMD guy, and they're not going to get me to switch to Intel yet.
Yeah, and it is funny because we were mentioning the PCIe 6 previously, and these are still using PCIe 5.
Well, yeah, 6 isn't out yet, right?
Yeah, but that's what we were talking about with the heating issues and everything like that. But so this is still, like I said, they haven't moved to that support yet, but it does down toward the bottom. It mentions a lot of things that these motherboards are going to come with are a lot of USB ports, a lot of display ports. I think it's got DisplayPort and HDMI 2.1, USB 3.2. So it's definitely, like I said, we're getting rid of the old and outdated, and Wi-Fi 7. I would have to check to see what the speeds are on Wi-Fi 7, but compared to anything current. But I mean, you're talking 1 gig Ethernet support, optional 2.5. So like I said, this is definitely moving into, like we talk about, AI is coming. I had an article I was checking out earlier that is talking about the difference in AI and having an AI PC. A lot of laptops are coming out with the Snapdragon AI built into it, with Copilot and everything like that, but they have not seen an actual desktop yet. So I would bet within the next year, you're going to start seeing that. So I think that's what Intel's looking forward to. They were showing potential pricing, $24,000 to $60,000 for a desktop with 5090 and AI built into it. So not going to be your consumer grade computer. Definitely going to be your high-end AI tracking, network type stuff. But like I said, these new CPUs are definitely setting the bar high for AMD to come back and try to rebut.
Yeah, coming back down to earth and the consumer level interest, DisplayPort 2.1 for integrated GPUs. I know we've said a lot about how the NUCs, the mini PCs that you can buy on Amazon for a couple $100. The integrated gaming on some of these, or integrated graphics on some of these, is so good that you could actually do pretty decent gaming. Having DisplayPort is an option. I know there are some people out there who are hardcore display porters versus HDMI. So that should be good news to them. I almost wonder, like, every case manufacturer is different. So what USB ports you have on your IO for the case that you're buying is going to vary, and they're going to obviously adjust it, when the trend in motherboards is X, cases are going to come with these things built into them. But I wonder if motherboards should just naturally come with some PCIe expansion card, because they know you're going to want more USB, and they can't cram it into the IO on the back anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a USB-C expansion card. You slip that in there when you build it, and now you've got 4 more USB-Cs on the back or something like that. And there's only so much real estate that you have to play with.
Well, and that's really something I consider whenever I built my PC the last time. I would have to count, but I think the back IO of my motherboard has 10 USB 2.0, 3.0 but realistically, a lot of cases nowadays only have maybe one Type C and one or two 3.0 USB connections
Hmm.
on the
Right.
case itself. So yeah, really, that is a huge factor to consider if you're going to be streaming. If you've got audio equipment, you've got anything that along those lines that you're going to be connecting to it. It is a factor because I have looked at cases or at motherboards that have only had six, and you would have to have an expansion in order to run something like that with a lot of equipment.
Or just put headers on there, so that, because I have an X570, right? That's what you are? Yeah. And the case I got has a USB-C plug on the front, but there's no USB-E, which is what the header plug is classified as, on the motherboard. So I can't use the USB-C plug on my case's I/O. I have to go get an expansion card that has that plug on it.
Yeah.
So they need,
Yeah, and
if they're not providing the expansion cards and helping you with that, the headers, I think, should be included. But related to this, I also was kind of looking at Arrow Lake chips and what the CPUs are going to look like for this chipset, and they're using a brand new core layout for the first time in years. I really didn't deep dive into this article. It was the headline that stopped me. For the first time in years. And I looked at it, it's 4 years, 2020. It's been 4 years. But the distinction that is eons in the tech development,
yeah,
space-time continuum, that they're seeing that as a really long time. It feels frightening as someone who has built a gaming PC or any kind of PC, and then you're worried about keeping up with the Joneses and keeping up with the latest tech and looking at the minimum specs for the game you want to buy. And you're constantly worrying, like, all right, is my computer enough? They're moving so fast. But I guess my question is, are they really moving that fast, or are they just using language that makes it sound like they're moving that fast? Is it really, because you mentioned earlier, is it there's leaps and bounds. There's the first article we did, going from horse-drawn carriage to automobile. Is it really moving that fast, or are they just scaring you into buying the next thing because you're worried you're going to get left behind?
It's kind of a difficult question. I mean, I don't think you're gonna run out of, new games are gonna come out unless it is something like AI that's gonna kind of kick you off of that game. It's like we're producing so much that it seems like DDR5 just came out, but DDR5 is 2 years old. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I don't know. We've mentioned it before on how much is too much for gaming. You've got a solid gaming PC that is right now very useful. If you just come out with the McLaren of GPUs, not everybody's going to have that. So it's like realistically, your 3060, Ti is it?
My 3070 Ti. Hold on,
3070 Ti.
McLaren F1 race car or McLaren like street car?
Regardless, what I'm saying is the high end, the Rolls Royce, the Bugatti. What I'm saying is you've got very high performance, and then it's like we're continuing to increase, but do we need to increase at the rate that we are? So I would say I don't think you're gonna force people into having obsolete equipment as
Mm-hmm.
much as it would be you just have that next new shiny product that the hardcore person is going to continue to consume.
Yeah,
Like I said, I don't think anybody's getting left behind.
no, I think it's FOMO. I think it's that's how you fund the R&D for the next big advancement, is you get people to buy this incremental advancement. I personally am waiting for AM6 so that I can make that leap from 4 to 6 and truly feel the jump. And
Yeah.
short of me having occupationally, I need to buy a computer or another computer and go to AM5 for whatever reason, I think I might try to keep a 5900X going until AM6 comes out and be like, that'll be like going from a horse-drawn carriage or, a Corolla to a McLaren.
Yeah.
for me. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
realistically, I went from a 3080 to a 4090 and from a 5900X to a 13900K. And really it
Switch to
is kind of
blue.
like what? Oh yeah.
Switch to blue.
But realistically it is one of those almost the FOMO and the buyer's remorse. You buy it and you're like, I'm going to turn this thing up. I already had it turned up. The only thing I'm getting is more frame rates above what I can even differentiate from with the human eye. So really, I've gone from 200 FPS to 270, 280. You know,
What?
so really, it's one of those like, you know, just throwing something out there. You're not going to tell a difference between those two
No.
results, except for on a chart. You know, and other than that,
Right.
like I said, it's really diminishing returns. I've got another, you know, $2,500, $3,000 computer, and I've got the same results that I had previously.
Sorry, I got a pit bull that just walked in here. She's gonna knock over my lights. Uh, now, for reference, I've played 300 hours of Gray Zone. If you're not aware, I love that game, and I've done it mostly at about 40 FPS.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, because that game is, I mean, it's pre-alpha, it's not
Yeah.
optimized. I got screen tearing all the time. Don't care. It's gonna get there. I know it is, but and I think
Once
I'm
they
now
have that
hovering.
first big update.
They're doing no. They had one big update, and they're doing the next big one tomorrow.
Okay.
And there should be some optimization and rubber banding things being taken care of. But as they've been making these improvements, I've noticed my FPS just naturally going up because they are optimizing along the way. So now I'm up to I'm hovering at like 70. And once you're above
Okay.
60, you're generally, you know, your eyeball is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's your Gray Zone update for the day.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm curious to see how it's going to jump whenever you see that 6070 at 110, and it's because of an optimization update. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it looks like they're definitely getting the bugs worked out.
Well, yeah, you'll have to play it to know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Keep trying to get him to play with me. He won't do it. All right, next story. This one is yours. Staying on the Intel train.
Another Intel article.
Talk
Intel
to us about
prepping
it.
at least 5 new BattleMage GPU models. So whenever we had first started doing this show, I think it was probably the
A decade
third
ago?
episode we had done. Do what?
It's like a decade ago, I think.
Yeah, it feels like. But I think like the third or fourth episode we had done, we had talked about Intel dropping they announced the new BattleMage GPUs. Now reading into this article, a little bit newer, seems like the BattleMage is going to start out as an integrated GPU setup. So they have different models that are going to be for either workstations or integrated, or not integrated, but mobile applications. And realistically, they're talking in this article, it's not even going to be announced until like performance or anything until they even know if it's going to be a discrete GPU model, which this
Okay.
would replace the ARC series that was the previous model, but the ARC come out in 2022. So really, I don't think the ARC took off enough for them to try to compete with NVIDIA and AMD. So now they're introducing this BattleMage that will be in laptops, it will be in mobile devices, and potentially they will have a discrete GPU model.
So they're field testing it in the small form factors space before actually making cards and I mean, the advancements with what's AMD or NVIDIA's new thing, the Blackwell, AMD with their multi-chiplet thing, and then the next Zen. It's got to be intimidating to try and get out there and get into that conversation. This is probably a smart move. I'm not a product manager or marketing guru, but that sounds like the smart thing to do, because right now Snapdragon is doing the same thing. They're sneaking in through that space and using it as a test bed. It's a good idea.
With the NPUs. And yeah, these things are showing the tail end of this year or early 2025 for a release, and then they will really. That's when I guess we'll know that or closer to the end of the year if there is going to be an actual discrete GPU released with it. So kind of interesting. Same thing that we talked about earlier, low power transistors with this. So very, very efficient in the form of this integrated GPU. Um, so yeah, and this is going to be the kernel. What is their the XE, the EX. So this will kind of be replacing the UHD Intel integrated graphics. Um, so like I said, it'll be interesting to see which models they end up coming out with and what applications they actually pair it with.
What do we think of the name BATTLEMAGE?
How did we think of that?
No, what do we think of it? What's your
Oh,
opinion on the name BattleMage? This whole naming, Intel's got an interesting history with naming conventions. You know, all the different lakes with their CPUs. You got
Raptor Lake.
Raptor Lake.
Yeah.
It sounds cool. The problem with these naming things is you finally land on a cool name like Raptor Lake, and now we're on Arrow Lake. I'm like, what? I liked the Raptor. Can I have the? No, I can't use the Raptor anymore because it's subpar. All right, I'll move on to the next one. And they come out with Gerbil Lake or something, and you're embarrassed to put it in your computer. Battle Mage, one, I've been saying the word battle image for about a day now because I did not. I'm clearly not into attention to detail. And then right before we went live, you're like Battle Mage, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's Battle Mage. Look at that. Okay, not Battle Image.
Yeah.
Is a mage a magical, like, sorcerer in Dungeons and Dragons or something? A mage?
So I would have to check that, but I do know that the 16 gig ARC, I think it was the A770 that they had, was called the Bifrost.
Okay,
So
that's
that
cool.
makes me think of the Bifrost from what was it, Thor?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like Battle Mage, maybe they're trying to stick with the kind of Viking, like they're trying to think of something along those lines to combat the Bifrost.
Well, I looked
But
it up
still
here. I've got
sound
it up on the screen now. It's
really
a
intimidating.
mage is a magician or learned person.
All right.
So I feel like I am a learned person. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm excited to see if they go discreet with this and maybe find a. Maybe they'll integrate this optical thing, and you'll be able to use your Intel GPU by plugging in cable rather than a PCIe slot.
It just seems like everything we're mentioning is going to be all at the next expo for Intel.
Yeah, Computex 2025. Keep an eye out, folks. Or whatever one they do in Vegas. Our next story. Oops. Scroll to the top there. Man, it got cropped out. I'm sorry, folks. The future of gaming is AI. How artificial intelligence is changing everything. This has got Brad really excited. I'm going to step back and let him take it away.
So, just like the normal thing, we've been talking about a lot of past shows, and we have mentioned AI. We've mentioned falling in love with your AI, different relationships, different effects of it. What's new, what's real, what's not, and really AI is doing a lot in the future of gaming. Um, as we can see, it is potentially doing automated world building. You can have actual 3D environments that are going to be rendered. Um, so game development should hopefully be a lot smoother, a lot easier. The AI could potentially find bugs and, like you mentioned, cracks in the map, things like that that we see today that eventually they patch over and you have fixes for. This also mentions analysis. It talks about in-game reaction, world changing due to the player's play style and the environment's changing, realistic weather, NPCs having emotions and reactions to certain things. So really a lot of very intricate things that AI is currently working on. Um, but it's going to be tailored to the end user. So your gameplay is not going to be the same as my gameplay. And I think that's like a really cool thing when it comes to streamers, because if you watch one streamer play a game, they play it all the way through. Why would you watch somebody else play it all the way through? If
Right.
everyone has a different setup, my whole game style is going to be going in and manipulating the NPCs to work for me. And now I've got my whole gang and my posse. And your game style is going to be you're a hitman that is out to kill everybody, and that's what it is, you know. So our end goal could be potentially different endings, you know, according to everything that they're showing. So
Go
like
bigger.
it.
Go bigger than that. So no, you and I, we were talking. We did our pre-show call last night. We were talking about Red Dead Redemption and how somebody
Mhm.
followed an NPC around, and he had all this different stuff that they did throughout the day. And if they completed their job piling hay, they would move on to another task the next day, and that's insane.
Yeah.
But to what you just said about, it's basically you could choose your own adventure on steroids. Every time you play the game, it's going to be drastically different. You could have a game where it's a blank slate and you could go anywhere with it. You could join and decide, all right, like I'm going to be in a city and I'm going to become a criminal. Boom. And now you have this whole game where you're a criminal and you're running from the cops and you're joining the mob or whatever. Same game. Someone could be, you know, essentially being an architect, and I'm going to build, this great building. And because they have all these sim games where you can be a
Mhm.
farmer simulation, or architect, or roller coasters, things like that. It seems like there could be a blank slate where it isn't a game that someone built. It's you go create your whole game from scratch, and the world is there. So if it's a city, all right, whatever behavior from these characters you can get within these city, this environment that they build. Because like you were right, you mentioned earlier, I had issues with the 3D world building. An AI can draft a world, but then fixing all those like little glitches in the map and cleaning it all up would take time. But if they have this NPCs getting
Yeah.
to the level of Scarlett Johansson, her, and people having relationships with them, I'm interested in the future where there's a whole AI world that's been built, kind of like Westworld. Like if you watch the TV show Westworld, and you started to feel for these people in this community and their wants and desires. Like, there's this virtual world full of people, and if someone shuts their computer off, they're all dead. Like, they're
Oh, I haven't seen that.
no, you haven't seen Westworld, the TV show?
No,
Okay, we'll
no.
get there.
But like you do say though, you got to think everywhere, all the way from developer to the end user would benefit from anything in this AI. So, like you said, developers, cool. We've got all kinds of issues. The AI would go through and smooth everything out. But
Hmm.
even the end goal, like you mentioned, you go into a city, you want to be whatever. You're just a normal guy passing through. You cut somebody off, you've made an enemy. Well,
So now
you
you're in
you end
changing
up
lanes
you end up
with
bumping into somebody walking down the
Affleck.
street. You eventually have reputation that will stay with you in that city. So you start to get pushed around, you start to get bullied, people don't like you get pushed out of stores, whatever it may be that you need to accomplish. Now I can't do it here. I've got to go to the next city in order for me to live a happy life.
So this is Second
So it is,
Life. Like
yeah,
that game Second Life was huge. This, uh, yeah, there's very negative implications to all of this, because there's already people with video game addictions, and this could be a true escape for people. Like, there was somebody in Japan, I think, or China, where they died because they just wouldn't leave their apartment. They were just playing the game, whatever game they were playing. They and all to your point about this is good for developers. if it gets to the point where there's a blank slate game where you can go in there and create whatever, there's the space game. All right, I got the space game. I'll create my own space game, and this is the objective of the game, and these are the characters I'm interacting with. There's very little development needs to go on at that point. You're becoming the developer. They're giving you a canvas to play with, and you can create your own universe. Developers aren't going to need to do much. And that means being a game developer, or if you're going to school for being a game developer right now, hurry up, because
or learn the AI.
Or there's
but
that.
Yeah, it is almost like AI sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want to do, and how far can you take it, and how far do you go to where you don't step on other trademarked games? I want a game that's like Tarkov mechanics that is killing zombies. So how could I manipulate the AI to develop that into it to where it's, or GTA, but Tarkov mechanics, to where it's first person shooter, everything is similar, but it's open world and everything is all abandoned with scavs running around, So it's like,
isn't that modding,
there's so many
though?
possibilities.
I've never played with the modding side of PC gaming, but isn't that if you want to add zombies to Tarkov, wouldn't that just be a mod?
So they have an SP Tarkov that has mods, but they don't have like, I don't think they've got a zombie edition, but they do have like dismemberment. They do have, things like that to where it's very graphic. But kind of like you mentioned with Red Dead Redemption, this has Red Dead, the NPCs that actually have a life. If you were to create that to where everybody has a certain reaction of you, you have, like I said, you could develop relationships. The world changes based on how you treat it. Like I said, it's just no two users would have the same end goal. And if they do have the same end goal, if there is a certain plot to the game, it's not going to be the same difficulty, because it does talk about the difficulty being tailored to you. Dynamic difficulty and pacing. So depending on how your play style is, it may be easier for you, it may be harder for me. So like I said, it is just really interesting as to how this AI could possibly change a game.
Yeah. And so on this topic of AI in games and how that's going to change the landscape of it, we have given ourselves an assignment. So next week, we are going to spend a portion of the show discussing the 2001 hilarious film Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds. Bradford hasn't seen it. I haven't seen it since it came out. So we're going to go back and watch it. We're going to view it from the perspective of this very topic that we're talking about, and come back with our thoughts on how well it's portraying, or did it predict anything that's actually coming true? Did it, what it got right, what it got wrong, and what it implies versus what we're seeing right now. So that's our exciting homework for next week.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. We've got a lot of movies on our list for interesting topics that we're going to try to tie into our tech stories. So if y'all are interested in that, let us know if you've got any recommendations, and we'll definitely look at it to potentially add it
to the roster. Yeah, but otherwise, that concludes our tech stories for the week. It is extremely hot in here right now, so I'm gonna cut this short so I can go lay in an ice bath or something. But Bradford, as always, great seeing you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Whoever you are out there, it was good seeing you as well. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Thank y'all. Y'all take care.
Peace.